Working the night shift at a supermarket was never exactly thrilling, but I liked the quiet routine. The silence between the aisles, the distant hum of the air conditioning, and the constant buzz of fluorescent lights created a comfortable monotony, at least until that light started bothering me. It was a bulb at the end of aisle 5, where the cleaning products were. It flickered occasionally, but never fully went out. I thought it was an electrical issue. I reported it to the manager a few times, but he always replied with, "We'll look into it later." It never seemed urgent, until it did. Over the past few weeks, I noticed the light flickering irregularly, almost like it was trying to follow a pattern. Sometimes, when I walked down the aisle, it would stop flickering and shine brighter than usual. Other times, it would start flashing frantically as soon as I walked away. It was strange, but nothing worth losing sleep over. At least at first. One night, during an especially quiet shift, I decided to check it out. I grabbed a ladder from the storage room and headed to aisle 5. The buzzing was louder up close, a high-pitched hum mixed with an occasional crackle. I climbed the ladder and switched off the lights for the entire aisle. All the lights went out, except that one. I kept staring, waiting for it to fade. It didn't. I climbed down and, out of curiosity, turned off the store's main breaker. The entire supermarket was plunged into complete darkness, except for the end of aisle 5. The light stayed on. My heart started racing. I tried convincing myself it was some wiring quirk, maybe connected directly to an external power source. But it didn't make sense. None of the other lights worked. I went back to the breaker panel, checked every switch. All off. I decided to remove the bulb. I returned with a ladder, a pair of pliers, and a flashlight, though I didn't need it with that stubborn light shining. I climbed up, gripped the socket firmly, and began unscrewing the bulb. It was hot, hotter than any bulb I'd ever handled. When I finally loosened it, the light stayed on. I froze for a moment, holding the disconnected bulb in my hand, while the empty socket still glowed with the same intensity. The buzzing continued, sharper now, like it had noticed what I'd done. I accidentally dropped the bulb, and it shattered on the floor, shards scattering everywhere, but the glow didn't dim. The aisles seemed even brighter. I stepped back slowly, eyes locked on the light, and then I saw something even stranger, the shadow. There was a shadow on the floor, cast by the light, but it wasn't mine. It was at an angle that didn't make sense, as if someone invisible was standing directly under the bulb. A tall, thin figure with clearly defined edges, perfectly still. I didn't stick around to figure it out. I sprinted through the empty store, not daring to look back. The buzzing seemed to follow me all the way to the back door, where I finally stopped to catch my breath. The next day, when I returned to work, the aisle was normal. The light was off, the broken glass cleaned up, no strange shadows. I asked the manager if he'd fixed anything, but he said no one had touched it. I never looked at that aisle the same way again. And sometimes when I pass by, I swear I see a shadow moving just a little too fast to be mine. It was supposed to be a simple task. Management had asked me to remove the outdated promotional posters from the walls during my night shift. Easy work to keep me busy. I grabbed a scraper and started peeling off layers of dusty, faded ads that no one had paid attention to in years. Then I found the poster. It was hidden beneath at least 3 other layers, stuck to the wall near the employee break room. The paper was brittle, the colors oddly vibrant despite its age. What caught my attention first was the date, the 15th of September, 2025. The problem? That date hadn't happened yet. I stared at it, trying to make sense of it. The poster advertised a grand reopening celebration for the very supermarket I was standing in. Same logo, same address. But the design felt off, old-fashioned, almost like something from the 90s. The people in the photo were smiling, but their expression seemed too stiff, too perfect, like mannequins trying to imitate human emotions. I looked closer. In the background of the poster, through the windows of the store, I could see the parking lot. It was mostly empty, except for one car parked at an odd angle. A car that looked exactly like mine. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe the car model was common. But I couldn't shake the unease growing in my chest. I peeled the poster off the wall completely. There was something written on the back in faded ink. "Do not be here after midnight." I stood there for a moment, the silence of the store pressing in around me. I checked my phone. 12:03 a.m. Suddenly, the store lights flickered. The familiar hum of the refrigerators cut out, replaced by an eerie silence. I felt an overwhelming urge to leave, to get out of there, but I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the spot, as if the floor itself was holding me in place. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing through the empty aisles. But I knew I was alone. I had locked the doors when my shift started. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until they stopped right behind me. I turned around. No one was there. The lights flickered back on. The hum of the store returned. I could move again. I stuffed the poster into a trash bag and threw it in the dumpster outside. But even now, whenever I pass by that wall, I swear I hear footsteps following me. Just a second, too late to be my own. I found the manual by accident. It was tucked away in a dusty drawer in the back office, buried under outdated receipts and old employee schedules. The cover was faded, the title barely legible, Supermarket Operations Manual, in blocky typewritten letters. It looked ancient, like it hadn't been touched in years. Curiosity got the better of me. I flipped it open during a slow night shift, expecting to find generic instructions about stocking shelves or handling registers. But the first page had a handwritten note. For night shift, use only. That was odd. I kept reading. The manual started off normal enough. Emergency procedures, inventory checklists, things like that. But as I turned the pages, the instructions grew increasingly strange. Do not acknowledge customers who appear after 3:33 a.m. They are not real. If you hear footsteps in aisle 7 but no one is there, do not investigate. Ignore it. If the intercom activates by itself, do not respond. Cover your ears until it stops. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, maybe a prank left by a former employee, but the pages didn't feel like a joke. The handwriting was serious, meticulous, as if whoever wrote it truly believed every word. I couldn't shake it off. That night, as the hours dragged on, I found myself glancing at the clock more often. 3 a.m., 3:15, 3:30. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the automatic doors at the front of the store slid open with a soft hiss. I was alone. There were no cars outside, no footsteps approaching. Just the doors, opening to nothing but empty parking lot. I froze, remembering the manual. Do not acknowledge customers who appear after 3:33 a.m. But there was no one there. I walked cautiously to the entrance, peering outside. Nothing. Just darkness and the distant glow of a streetlight. I told myself it was a glitch. Those doors were sensitive sometimes. I turned around to head back to the register, and that's when I saw him. A man was standing in aisle 7. I hadn't heard him come in. He was just there, facing away from me, perfectly still. My heart raced. The manual flashed in my mind again. If you hear footsteps in aisle 7 but no one is there, do not investigate. I hadn't heard footsteps, but he was there. I called out, "Hey, we're closed." No response. He didn't move. I took a step closer, gripping the edge of the counter. That's when the intercom crackled to life above me, static buzzing loudly. A distorted voice whispered something unintelligible. I covered my ears, just like the manual said, heart pounding in my chest. The static faded after a few seconds. When I looked up, the man was gone. The next day, I tried to find the manual again. I went back to the drawer where I had found it, dug through every piece of paper. It wasn't there. I asked my manager if he'd ever seen an old operations manual with weird notes. He just gave me a confused look and said, "What manual? I don't work the night shift anymore." Working the night shift at a supermarket has its perks, mostly the solitude. No loud customers, no screaming kids, just the hum of the refrigerators and the occasional clatter of a misplaced item. It was peaceful, predictable. Until the night, I noticed something wrong with my reflection. It started subtly. I was restocking shelves in aisle 3, near one of those convex security mirrors mounted high in the corner. I'd passed by it 100 times without a second thought, but that night, something felt off. As I rolled the cart past, I caught a glimpse of my reflection, and it didn't quite match. I stopped, backed up and stared. At first glance, everything looked normal. But then I noticed the delay. When I lifted my hand, the reflection mimicked me a fraction of a second too late. I laughed it off, blaming sleep deprivation. Maybe it was just my imagination, or a trick of the light. But it kept happening. Over the next few nights, I started noticing it more often. The reflections in the security mirrors, freezer doors, even puddles on the floor. Always a tiny lag, like my reflection was trying to keep up. I even tested it, waving my hands quickly, shifting side to side. The delay was unmistakable, just a split second, but enough to make my skin crawl. One night, curiosity got the better of me. I decided to confront it directly. I stood in front of one of the larger mirrors near the front of the store, staring at myself. I moved my head slowly, side to side, and my reflection followed, almost perfectly, but not quite. I leaned in closer, studying every detail. That's when I saw it. My reflection blinked, but I hadn't. I froze, heart pounding. I tested it again, stared without blinking as long as I could. And there it was, a blink, just once, quick and subtle, but it happened. I stumbled back, feeling the cold sweat on my neck. I looked around the empty store, half expecting someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha!" But it was just me, the buzzing lights, and that mirror. I grabbed a box cutter from my cart. I don't know why. Maybe for comfort. I turned back to the mirror. My reflection was standing there, calm, matching my every move again. No delay this time, perfectly synchronized. I stared for what felt like forever, waiting for it to slip up. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then, just as I was about to turn away, it smiled. I didn't. Which story left you the most unsettled? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy diving into the eerie unknown, subscribe for more chilling tales. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next dark whisper.